Now let's work on the body. So for the UVs on the body, let's go ahead and I'm just going to do a quick auto map really quick so we can kind of get a starting point. And then I want to create different islands for all of the stuff that's flesh versus the stuff that's jumpsuit or sash. Okay. This will make things in Substance Painter a little bit easier because we can very quickly mask materials based on different UV shells. And so anything that like the claws will all be separate and so forth. And so I'm going to come in here and just cut along the sash. And so I'll do a cut there. We can take the sash, select the interior of it, pop it over to the middle there, cut that, and keep stitching it together. Okay, and remember we're only working with half of the geometry. So I'll sew all of that together. Let's go ahead and add those on there. You can unfold it. And the back we'll want to cut across as well. So that's going to be right there. And then that should work. Sew that, and then unfold that. All right. So that gives us a shell that's going to be this sort of satin material. And it's very easy then to mask things off in Substance Painter. If we look up here, you can see we can go ahead and cut out the shoulder bit. And if we just drag across there and deselect anything on the arm, you can see we can very quickly, because it's an isolated area, can very quickly just stitch everything together. Go ahead and unfold that. And now we've got that piece for the shoulder. And you can define your cuts in your 3D space as well. So for instance, if you see in your 3D space where you want your seams to be, you can go in here, select those, and then do a cut. And now you've got your edges cut the way you want them to be. All right, let's go ahead also and cut off the toes. So we want to cut at the base of the toes. So I'll just double click to select those and cut. Some of those you may need to continue on, and then we'll pull the toes off. Pull that toe off. And then we can start to figure out, okay, I know I don't want the seam to be in here, or I know I don't want the seam to be on the top, so I'll stitch those together, unfold that, unfold. We're still getting a little bit of the toe in there, so we need to make sure to cut right there. And then this one as well. Looks like that's the culprit. And then we can start to just stitch all of this together. Again, just a combination of using stitch, sew, and unfold. And then we'll do an unfold. Let's rotate it. I don't like to have it at an angle like that. And then this is all going to kind of get sewn together. And a lot of times I won't even look for where that other piece of the shell is, and I'll just kind of hope it pops in there. And a lot of times it does. You can see when I sewed that time, I can see that that's another piece. And so I'll do stitch instead. But the good thing is we only have to do one leg. Here I've got a piece that's on the other side of the same shell, so I'll just cut it and then sew it over there. That's going to be, again, part of the toe, the claw, so I'll go ahead and cut that off. Get all those claw pieces kind of together. Let's go ahead and you can see right now we have some seams in here. I actually want to move them over kind of to this side, so I'm going to select kind of some geometry in here. And let's just select it all the way up. And I'm going to cut that off. Move it over to the other side. And you can see I have a hole there now. We'll go ahead and cut that. So that gives us a seam along one side, not the other. If you wanted to come in and create a seam like right down the middle of the back, we could do that. Move this smaller piece back over there. And then the claw, each of the claws we can take and start to stitch those together. This will be the top and the sides. And then you just want to figure out where you want the seam to go. Let's cut that and bring it over to this side. Go ahead and add all these pieces in. That's going to be the other toe. So here we got one claw, and the other one I'll go and attach the top to it. And it's going to be over here. And kind of just keep going all the way around. So that gives us two shells for the toes and then a shell for the leg going up all the way to the pants. For the leg on the pants, we can go ahead now and take this, we'll stitch the inside of it together. And I want to make sure that the seam is kind of on the inside here. So I will select the edges on the interior. Go ahead and cut those. And then move this over to the other side. Just to organize the seam a little bit better. So this should be the portion that is between the leg and the sash. Come down and connect all these. Again, just make the seam consistent all the way around. This will be that last little bit of the pants here. All right. So we've got leg, we've got claws, we've got pants, we've got the top part of the body, the sash. So we still have quite a bit to do, but let's go ahead and cut it off right here. Now let's pick up where we left off and continue creating the UVs for the body. Let's do the chest, or the torso. So I know what side this is because of the projection, and so I'm going to make sure to get the front on here, not have a seam there. So I'll go ahead and stitch that front in. Going to unfold that. There's no other side to the front. So let's go ahead and continue and add the back. We know that this is the back piece. Let me cut out the part that's supposed to be the sort of cut off wings. And then that back goes with this. Unfold. Sew those and unfold. It's kind of therapeutic to see it all come together. Stitch some extra pieces in here that are kind of floating around. Now that is the armband, and I want to actually cut where the armband is. So If you have an armband on yours, I'm going to cut this out because the armband, obviously it's gold. And so I don't want, I want that to be on its own shell. Go ahead and unfold that. And I'm actually going to cut down the side as well. So I'll make that a seam. And then we can grab these and move them over to the other side. And it starts to look a little bit better. Up around the collar, you just want to make sure you sew everything together up there. Make sure we get the little bits that go with the interior of these openings, because the thickness of it should go with the shell that is the clothing, not the skin underneath. Sew all these bits of the collar together. So that is something like that for the torso. Kind of move it off. And so now we're kind of dwindling down on what we've got to work with here. Here's the armband. So it's pretty clear what needs to go on the armband. So I'll go ahead and continue and attach those bits. Again, unfolding will give you a little bit of a cleaner look at what you're trying to do here. And you can see that needs to be popped over on that side. We have a little bit here. So now if we want to mask off an area that's going to be gold on our body, we can do that just by using this shell. Okay. Here we can really quickly do this because we can just select these edges, deselect the ones around the hole, and then just do a stitch together because there's no seams. It's just a flat piece. So we can then select this and do an unfold. I'll put it up with the body shells. Then we can do the arm. And the arm, you could cut the arm off at the sleeve as well. You could also leave it. I'm actually going to cut it. So we've got the arm and then the sleeve arm, basically. And not even the full sleeve arm. Now we will have to modify this for the other side because we'll want to remove the band because the band's only on one side. There we've got our elbow. You can go ahead and cut that elbow out. A couple of edges we just need to cut right there. Again, we can treat our elbow the exact same way. Select that, deselect that. When you stitch, you're only going to get what you need. Then when you're all done, you can just unfold it. And it looks like we've got a little bit extra. There we go. We'll cut that off, and that needs to go over here. So now we can take this one, move it up with our body. All right. Let's move our seam more to the inside. So I'm thinking more like that. Go ahead and cut it there and then move everything over. And if you know in your mind that there shouldn't be a seam there, right? You have it, the structure of it in mind, and you sew it and it doesn't look right, don't panic, because when you unfold it, it may look fine. It's just temporarily because of the overlap and things like that. You'll quickly learn what's actually okay and what actually is not okay, in terms of if you've accidentally sewn something together and now you don't have any seams to where it can unfold. That'll become apparent because you won't, when you hit unfold, it's not going to give you a nice shell like this. Now this piece is part of the arm. So let's go ahead, and now we've got the the upper or the fabric arm. So the rest of this should be arm and fingers. And so let's do the same thing we did with the toes. We'll cut off the claw part of the fingers. We can do these all at once. Go ahead and cut. And then this is the top of the arm. So I'll go ahead and sew that. If we had more distinct fingers, I would maybe just cut those off. And you could still even cut them off. But what I'm going to do is just sew everything together on the top here. Let's unfold it. And so we are going to get probably a little bit of a starfish hand, which we only have 3 fingers and they're pretty wide. So I think we're going to be fine with that. But let's put the hand together first, and then we can see if we want to go ahead and cut those fingers off. Okay, so then we have the inside of those fingers. If it gets too distorted, we can always cut them off. Let's make a seam right on the inside here. And as we get that seam selected, we can cut that out and pop it over. So we get them all cut, pop it over to the other side. We can then unfold, grab some other seams and start to put the sides, 2 sides together into a way that makes more sense. And you'll be able to quickly see when something is connected to the other side, whether you need to cut that off or not. Then you can just go through that cycle of cutting and sewing, stitching, and then unfolding as you start to stitch all of these pieces back together. And you'll see as you select those edges, you select one of them, the other one gets highlighted. It'll be pretty apparent where those connections can be made. And if you don't see any other connections, then it's probably a piece sitting somewhere off in the distance. So that's what I'm talking about, starfish, where it's all splayed out, kind of like a pelt map. A lot of times it's not going to be the ideal way. And so like I said, you could come in here and select at the base of the fingers and do each finger by itself. So you would cut that out, bring the fingers off, and then do this one. You could do this one at the base. You could actually do it a little bit further down if you wanted to. And so this one we'll do here as well. Unfold each one of those pieces. And if you think about it, the fingers are cylindrical shaped. So the layout makes sense. And then grab the thumb, and we'll bring the thumb down and put those pieces together. And then unfold that whole thing. Cut right there. And then add those other pieces over. And then you just have the base left over, but you don't have the fingers all crowding into each other. Now the only thing left is the claws. So we've got 3 of them. Start stitching them together. So finish up the rest of those claws, and then in the next clip, we'll take all the pieces that we've got, we'll mirror the body across to get the complete body, and then we will assemble and lay out all of the different shells that we've created.